This is absolutely a team effort. I wouldn't be here without the City Council, who puts the policies in place that lets I and the staff execute and make this such a wonderful place. I certainly wouldn't be here without the staff that are in the audience tonight that I'd like to acknowledge. So if you are a staff member for the City of Bastrop, please stand. Those are the real heroes. They make my job easy. So tonight, there are a lot of newcomers in the audience, and we're going to go through a little bit of the history. This is a presentation, so some of you may say that you're going to get a little dizzy. Hold on. There's a lot embedded in here that I tried to keep to 45 minutes, so maybe if we have some time, we'll do a Q&A session. So, embracing our future, but still honoring our past. That is the theme that I've continued to try to solidify when I arrived. One of the things that the council said was, we love who we are, and let's try to keep that and let's not change that. But things are coming very, very, very fast, and we have a lot of angry people out there. So as one of the council members says in their interviews that you'll hear, we're a small city, but we've got big city dreams, mid-city budgets. So we're going to work through all of that together, and you'll see some of that in the presentation. But in the 1800s and 1900s, we faced similar challenges, very similar challenges. So we're just going to take a quick look back, because I'm a firm believer that the rear view is smaller for a reason, right? You can't forget what's there, because we're facing a lot of the same challenges. So many of you know, we were first occupied in 1804 as a fort, crossing the Colorado River at the old San Antonio Road, and named Puesta del Colorado. Thank you to the museum for having these awesome stats that I could easily grab. The town was incorporated in December of 1837, and along with farming, the timber industry was the mainstay of the local economy. Fast forward, here we are. Population estimates expected to reach 20,000 by 2029. That's a 42.8 population growth in just 4 to 5 very short years. So who is that? You feel it at the grocery store. I know that you feel it on Highway 71. I know that you feel it in the bridges. I know that you feel it waiting in line at any one of the restaurants. So who is that? Who's coming into our town? So we've got a wide variety of, I'm a stats person. For those of you who don't know, I am completely numbers driven. I was a business and finance major in my prior life, and that drives all of my decisions. I want to make sure that they're smart decisions, sustainable and measurable. And for me, the measurable part is the quantifiable part. Down at City Hall, we use a program called Esri. Most of you will know it. It's a similar program to Google Maps, except we add layers of information. And I like to tell people, I can tell you how many adult diapers were sold on Main Street in whatever week of the month you'd like to know. That is how granular the data gets. We layer that with other information pieces. We have a program called HDL that will tell me every single taxpayer in the town, how much they paid, are they current on their business taxes, and if not, how far behind, and where they are going in terms of success or failure. We use that in the EDC to make sure we're reaching out to our businesses who are struggling. So here's our population estimate, 20,000. So who makes up that population? We've got some stats I'll show you in a future slide. We talk a lot about affordable housing. Where are they living? So a good portion of our population is living in actual owner-occupied homes. That portion, 68%, has grown to 74% and has grown to 79% and continues to climb. So we're doing something right. In one of the slides, you'll see most of the people who live in our midst are young professionals. And there's a tapestry segment that is hopefully going to show up here.
Affordable housing is so important to the diversity of a community because the richness of a community comes from their diversity of population, and so to be to have affordable housing. Affordable and attainable housing is so important to maintaining the diversity of people who get to live there. And anything that we can do to help housing be attainable and affordable so that all kinds, all ages of life, that you can age in place here, that you can be born here, spend your whole life and age in place here, all cultures, all diversity.
So who really lives here? Who's making up that diversity? This is a tapestry segment. Again, I can dissect pretty much any data point that you want to see about who actually lives here, by street, by block. So our first tapestry segment, the biggest tapestry segment, is that of bright young professionals. We have 2,498. That is a majority of married couples ages 34 and over who have a college degree who earn a per capita of $61,000. The next segment is a funny segment. It's called Green Acres. That's 1,500 households who make up also married couples age 45 and older who have a college degree, who have a per capita income of $86,100. And they live in mostly single family, whereas the bright young professionals are mostly living in multifamily. And then we have what are called Southern Satellites. 918 households married, age 41 and older, with a high school diploma, with a per capita income of $54,800, and they live in single family or large area mobile home type living segments. We have a very educated population. More than 52% of our population has a college degree or has attended college in some form or fashion. And our median household income is $76,000, with our average home value at $296,000. And so if we go back to the prior slide, you'll see that the housing costs begin to climb. In 2022, we had a median value of $247,000 compared to Bastrop County at $235,900. We move to 2029, and that median value becomes $351,000 versus $388,000. So you can see why Bastrop is attracting those tapestry segments, because our professionals and our service workers are living out further into the county where housing is much more affordable. She had a wonderful quote that the minute our population can't live here is the minute we begin to lose our culture. And that's absolutely true. And I will tell you that this council and my administration, we are super focused in making sure that we keep our taxes down, that we're prudent with our dollars, and that we make sure we're only punting projects forward that are actually projects that are needed and are sustainable and can be paid. So to diversity. Measured on a scale of 0 to 100, 0 is a non-diversified community, meaning one major ethnicity or race. Bastrop is scored at 72. We're still a little less than Bastrop County, which is at an 81. Oh, why am I? Sorry, told you I was going to make it dizzy there for a minute. Hispanics make up the largest growing segment. Right now, we make up 28.6% of the population within the city limits, but when you go over into the county, it's 42.6% of the county is Hispanic and growing. Blacks make up 7.7%, and other make up 2.1%, with white making up 61.6% of the population. And so speaking to diversity, the Bridging Bastrop Board, formerly known as the DEI Board, has been focused on diversity and inclusivity and an equitable access to resources. We're tackling veterans issues, we're tackling communication barriers, and we're addressing education on how to access available resources. Recently, we partnered with the BEDC to bring an entrepreneurial series that targeted underserved businesses, small businesses, and how to give them access to capital and how to give them access to resources that are much needed in our community and readily available. It is connecting community. Yesterday, there was a Hispanic Business Network that's grown, is hosting every month. Sylvia, our friend Sylvia from Casa Chapala, was the guest speaker. And you'd be amazed at how many folks, number one, don't speak English, but number two, have available resources they want to invest, They want to be here, they want to become a fabric of the community, and they have small businesses that they want to be successful. And so part of our goal is to help commit and connect those resources, because when one is thriving, many hands, right, make light work. So thank you to Sheila and the Bridge and Bastrop board for the work that they're doing. So this is a snapshot of the community. Where are we? And I know everybody's anxious to get to the development piece, and we will. But it's important to know where we are and who's in our midst, because that goes to show exactly what sort of resources should we be putting forward. Who is here and what are the best ways to address and serve the population? We do have 9.2% of our population who is living below the poverty level. 4.3% of our population are on SNAP or food stamps. That makes the work that the food bank is doing so important. And council has recently partnered and become a steward in allowing permit fees to be excused and other fees. It makes their project a greater possibility. So with all of that growth, how do we stay unique? How do we keep ourselves Bastrop?
The most exciting aspect about Bastrop's future is the fact that Bastrop wants to retain its identity as Bastrop, not as a bedroom community of Austin, not as another small town in Central Texas, but as Bastrop, Texas. There's a unique character to it, and that uniqueness is described by each and every individual perhaps differently, but there is a uniqueness. You can feel it in your conversations, you can feel it when you go to the many events that we have here in Bastrop. There is a unique character to Bastrop. Veterans is a huge portion of what happens in Bastrop that is unique in towns throughout East Texas, throughout Central Texas, throughout West Texas. Bastrop stands out.
All right, so the piece everybody came to see, development on the horizon. So just to give you an idea of everything before we dive super deep into the details, this is everything that we're working on at City Hall in partnership with the Planning and Zoning Commission and many of our boards and committees. We are reworking our comprehensive plan. Normally, when a city has time, you work on a comp plan. Legislatively, you must have a comp plan. That is the umbrella everything rolls up under. That is the way that we can ensure that our capital projects that we're creating line up with a comprehensive plan. So we are not spending good money after bad, not knowing what we're doing. Bastrop is a little bit different. Our comprehensive plan is out of date, and we are rapidly trying to bring it up to date. At the same time, we're working on our water and wastewater master plans. That's almost, having to write the playbook on a whim. And it's coming so fast. It's almost impossible to determine where a line should have gone last year and it's already out of date, or it needs to be moved, or it's already at capacity. We're working on our transportation master plan. We've had wonderful discussions and conversation and partnerships with our county to make sure that the powers that the city have of exaction, when a plat comes in and we're exacting the necessary right-of-way for that road to get built, is in line with the county, and we're not fighting each other, leaving property that we'll end up needing to buy later on to acquire that same right-of-way. Again, it's smart so the taxpayer doesn't have to pay for it later on. Additionally, we are working through our water and wastewater master plans. Our water master plan is probably the one that is the most solid for now, and you'll see some of that on the further slides. The wastewater master plan, though, is in a state of flux. We have expanded our existing wastewater plant, the plant that was supposed to be torn down, because as I was told when I got here, if you hit it with the weed eater, it was going to come down in pieces. Well, I would love to be able to take that plant down, but the reality of it is we're growing to our west as much as we're growing to our east. So we're taking some ARPA money, again, money that the federal government has given cities, and we're putting it to a rehabilitation of that plant. And we'll talk more about that here in just a second. We've, as part of the transportation plan, we met with the Planning Commission, who has identified transportation and transportation issues to be the biggest quality of life factor for our residents and our growing city. And so to that end, we want to connect people, and we want to connect people in meaningful ways. And that means not just sidewalks that go to nowhere, but sidewalks that have connection and sidewalks that move people safely. I wish I could take credit for the sidewalk that's out there. No, I don't. That's a TxDOT sidewalk. The TxDOT sidewalk that you see being built along 71, that is a TxDOT project. That is not a city project. Our projects are within the city boundaries, moving people from location to location, and wider than just a sidewalk, making sure it's multimodal. We can bike there, we can walk there. TxDOT calls them hike and bike trails. I'm not sure I'm ready to call it that. We recently adopted the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, but there is much work to be done. That plan had a lot of recommendations in it, and we are working our way through that with the Park and Recreation Advisory Board, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, because again, everything centers around that particular board. The ordinances that we write and recommend to council on what we can take in terms of land for parks and trees and open space must start within our plating ordinance, and that begins at Planning and Zoning Commission. And then we work through the zoning and subdivision code, the B3 code. So it's no secret we have issues within the code, and we've addressed probably some of the hardest issues within the code to address, but it is still difficult for some of our residents. And it's still difficult for commercial development. So in the transportation plan that I'm going to bring up, you'll see a litany of streets, and you'll see some of the issues that we're working our way through. But again, in partnership with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also open meetings. Those meetings are open to everybody. We are having Saturday workshops once a month that really digest and get to a very granular level of what is happening in our town. And then comes tree preservation. Super, super important. You can't be the heart of the lost pines and not have any pines. And so incorporating that into our ordinance, incorporating smart tree preservation into the ordinance so that folks not only don't want to do it, but it becomes so expensive to do it. I get scared when I see the ranger, no offense to ranger, if I see the ranger truck show up to a development site, because I know nothing will be left on that site when they get done. And that is not protection of our heritage. That is not good for the environment. It's not good for heat. It's not good for water. It's not good for drainage. Scraping the land empty is not good for anybody. So we're putting some real teeth into our tree preservation ordinance. Here's what everybody came for. What's going on? So I think the colors are going to load a little bit better. So I'll start from the north. So you all know Mr. Musk is at 1209 and 969. The city did partner with Corex. We did invest $3.5 million to bring a wastewater line down 969 that will connect to our new treatment plant. That was twofold. One, it's the smart thing to do to protect the Colorado. Our wastewater treatment plant has new technologies. I don't want to be downstream of a poopy river, and I don't think anybody else does either. So it was smart to protect our environmental heritage and be good environmental stewards of what's happening. But two, this is not our wastewater service area. That belongs to Corex, a different utility. And as I tell the council, there are no companies who are trying to knock on my door to take over the library. Nobody's trying to knock on the door to take over police and fire, because those don't make any money, but utilities do. And so this area belongs to Corex. And so in partnership with Corex, we have a very expensive bill to pay for wastewater treatment plant. And it makes sense to partner with a different utility who can also help pay some of that cost and help ease the burden on the ratepayer. So we move to the Colony. Colony further expansion. The Colony has a senior living neighborhood that I talked to Joey. Is Joey here today? Talked to Joey with Hunt Communities. That's a 500 lot subdivision that'll be off of 969. We move further down. How many of you have seen the development that's already happening at Valverde? You see the streets, you see the punch out happening. That is a 1,700 unit LUE, what we call living unit equivalents. We've annexed the front part of the area. That's already within the city limits. There's supposed to be commercial on the front. There's multifamily, and then there's single family residential. Valverde makes the cut and comes across to 20. How many of you have seen the street cut when you're driving on 71 heading into Austin? You see what is the beginning of a street. That will be a street. It will connect, it will ease some of the burden on 969. The city recently settled because, again, if we're not doing our right-of-way acquisition properly during the platting stage, we have to pay for it later on. And so we had a possession and use agreement that allowed us to bring water from the elevated water tank that is serving the Addleton subdivision to bring it through into the Valverde subdivision. So Valverde is expected to expand all the way here. So I'll stay north of 71. So at Pearl River, which is now Sendero, there are, I believe, 17 apartment buildings, and only half of them are up, and that's what you see there today. In front of that will be commercial and hotel and restaurants. And within the Pearl River, I have the name, Chewy's and Texas Roadhouse, among others, that are going to be at the Pearl River site. Moving over to Burleson Crossing, in front of Burleson Crossing is the Chipotle that will be breaking ground in front of Lowe's any day now. Burleson East, which is across the street, is host to also Texas Roadhouse, among others. We've been told Kohl's, etc. I have not gotten my hands on what we call the letter of intent, an LOI, on who is actually going to go in that subdivision. We hear anywhere from Aldi's to Sprouts, etc., which makes my heart very happy so that I don't have to go to H-E-B. So part of this connectivity, 969, working with county and TxDOT, 969 is expected to be a Mod 6, which is a 6-lane highway. If you've taken 969 into Austin recently, the traffic is unbelievable all the way to Ed Bluestein, and it's not letting up. It's not letting up. The minute that we expand wastewater there, this whole area is going to light up like a Christmas tree. So to go further, Bar W is a development that has been in for early assistance, what we call pre-development assistance, that is 800 acres, that has the potential to create a 3,200 unit subdivision, all within the city limits. Part of our development strategy is if you want service, you must annex. Annexation and ad valorem is how we pay for police and fire and all of those services that we call quality of life. We let the colony slip through. Again, I don't see anybody from Hunt Partners here, but we let the colony slip through. You won't be slipping through with me. You can't. You know, we've got things to pay for. And if you want to come and enjoy our downtown and enjoy our amenities, then you kind of got to belly up to the bar too. So we move further and, you know, folks go, well, there's not a whole lot going on to the west. Well, there is. We have I believe it's a 50-plus duplex development off of 95 close to the existing Bastrop ISD. Moving over to Buc-ee's, we have an expansion of Mercedes chargers, which for any of you that you don't know, the Tesla chargers that are there create more revenue for BP&L than Buc-ee's electricity per month does. It is a revenue generator, and Mercedes is knocking on the door. The problem with that is if I let Mercedes do what Mercedes wants to do, I tap out the western portion of the town at 92% plus of electricity usage. So I've got to catch up on the electricity part and extend a fourth feeder in that direction to make sure we have adequate supply now and in the future. Moving over, we have what was the industrial district, that's still to the south. We have Sayers Road development. That's also, if these two folks can get it together, this entire area is going to create, again, additional thousands of development units. So moving to our south, I'll start with Addleton, which is at Highway 20. You see the elevated water storage tank there. That is a small unit subdivision that the school will be opening an elementary school there very soon. They've already broken ground and are going through the site development process. Crossing the street, we come into the Hunters Crossing PID area, and as we work out drainage issues with our friends at the county, We are drafting an interlocal because I know Hunter's Crossing floods, and I know that we have issues, and I know that we need to address it. But I can't address it alone. Hunter's Crossing, I wish drainage stopped at the city limit line, but it doesn't. And so we'll work with our friends at the county to help address and alleviate some of the concerns that are going on there. Moving over to Bastrop Grove is what I call Hotel Alley. You see 2 hotels already coming up. There's 5 hotels planned in that vicinity, in this entire area, with another one behind CVS coming soon. And so Agnes begins to be created. Agnes should be completed in January of 2026 is my hope, December of 2025. No, it's got to be 2026. 2025 is right around the corner, which will end up creating connectivity and alleviates a lot of the Pecan Park issues. And it begins to create parallel lines along 71, so folks don't have to necessarily get on 71. That's our hope for the northern portion also, as 969 comes across, makes the turn at Blakey, continue down where Reed Ranch and Riverside Grove neighborhood comes in, make the turn at Old Austin Highway, and again, continue to be parallel to 71, being able to stay off of the highway. We move over to the industrial park, and there are some exciting things happening there. And if you haven't been there, you need to go. TA Adhesives, which is a Canadian company specializing in adhesives and specialty glues for computers and such, they should be receiving their certificate of occupancy by next month. And all of these companies are coming with good paying jobs over $50,000 and are incentivized to hire local. In the industrial park also is L&S Electric. That is a Korean company that is also servicing the Samsung plant in Taylor. They're already into their 2nd expansion and looking for more land. And again, good paying jobs for our local economy. And the most exciting part about the industrial park is Accutronic, and we'll talk about Accutronic later on in the presentation, but it's really a testament to what can happen when we work together. And it's a partnership with the BEDC, it's a partnership with the school district, and it's a partnership with industry. And it is a mutual benefit to every single one of us in this room and to the students of BISD. Moving back toward the industrial district, the school district is planning a public safety building and an expansion on their facility. The county is planning a warehouse building that if you drive down Lover's Lane, you'll already see it go vertical. And at the southernmost portion of Lover's Lane is a small 25-unit subdivision development. Moving over, we've got some property that is in the early development stages. They're still going through their due diligence on how to create a subdivision over property that had been embroiled in legal battles. And that's about 260 units that would be created in this area. Moving south along 304. How many of you are tired? You want me to stop already? Because it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. So moving south to 304 is a subdivision development called Ironwood. Ironwood is expected to bring 1,300 units into that area. And to help us reach Ironwood, we're working with our friends at the county and TxDOT to annex portions of 304 that will help Ironwood serve water and wastewater to its development. Let's go back to the movie studio project. It fell off, it was on again, it was incentivized, it wasn't incentivized, it was annexed, it was de-annexed, it left the ETJ. We met with them late last week. They are back because they need water. They're in our service territory, and we will provide water. There's a plan to provide water, but this begins to create a connection back under the river to 304 to create much needed water loops. And again, once electricity and water are there, Katie, bar the door. Any one of the utilities reaching you, Katie, bar the door. So I expect a full explosion between Ironwood and 71 as utilities become available.
The long-term vision for Bastrop over the next 10 to 20 and beyond years is to balance our growth that is here and still coming. And when I say balance, I mean to attract good business that our citizens need and which pays for all the activities that we want to have for our citizens, but also to maintain the quality of life for our citizens who have been here for a long time. And we do that through our building codes. We do that through consideration of our downtown area. We have certain areas in our town, especially new areas, where high density probably will and does work. But there are many areas in our town where we have citizens that have lived here all their lives that will not support high density, mainly because the infrastructure is not there, and it's not fair to encumber our citizens who have been here with higher taxes to pay for things that won't work for them. So I found the challenge, but exciting things to be the balance of that and how to do it. And I think with the right planning, we can do that.
You're going to hear that theme throughout. And I'd like to tell the council that even though sometimes we feel we are on super opposing sides of the spectrum, I promise you there is not one council member who is serving today or in the past who wants anything but what's in the best interest of Bastrop. How we get there, that's a story that needs to be told, and it really is incumbent upon you guys to show up and tell us how you want us to do it. They're not sitting in a vacuum up there, and there are some really critical decisions coming down the pipeline to be made. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, Ishmael Harris, who is the chair, I'm not sure if Ishmael's here. Ishmael is the chair. Ishmael identified transportation as being the single most important quality of life issue facing Bastropians today. So this, it kind of looks like a hot mess, but this is actually a marriage of maps between the county, the city, TxDOT, and CAMPO, the Capital Area Metro Planning Organization. All of the big roads that are planned to get through and around Bastrop. What you see in the grid section is remnants of the B3 code. Sometimes a near impossibility to create. Streets are expensive to build, but they're even more expensive to maintain. And so to that end, as we look through our subdivision ordinance and we look through our standards, we are trying to work with developers in a way that makes sense. For example, Ironwood down to the south. There is no reason that street should be complete before the houses go vertical. And if you go to Valverde on 969, the roads are in, but then what happens? The concrete trucks come and everybody comes and those streets get torn up. And guess what happens? We're stuck paying for it. So instead of putting that onus on the taxpayer, let's put it back on the developer by putting good street base standards in place and creating a development sequence that makes sense. Maybe the streets don't get finished until the development is 75% or so in place, so that way they're not ripping up the street as they continue to build it. Those are super simple decisions. Making sure that our bond, our warranty bond is longer than 2 years. If the subdivision is going to be phased out and it's taking 5+ years, why would we only give ourselves a 2-year bond? It doesn't make any sense.
So when we talk about quality of life, we're talking about what makes a community not just a place to live, but a place to thrive. In the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, our parks and amenities, safety in our streets, jobs, affordable housing, and in the sense of belonging that we bring to our residents and visitors in the city. These key areas are critical in successful governance and community development. We want to encourage participation from our residents to help us make Bastrop a better place to live.
So to ensure that development pays its fair share, Council has approved a transportation impact fee for new development that's going to be used to pay for new roads. Those roads that you saw on that map prior, those are all new roads. Those are not existing roads. This fee begins at $1,526 per LUE for areas growing to the east and $919 for areas growing to the west. And to give you an example of that, a Walmart or a Target would pay close to $2 million in road impact fees. Those are the things that help us develop Blakey. Those are the things that help us develop the roads around our town. And if the development is coming and the traffic is coming, then let's help them pay their fair share of that. Existing roads, where's my Water Street peeps and my Linden Street and my Farm Street people? Councilmember Meyer made sure we didn't use that cut because you called them out specifically. The voters approved in November a reallocation of sales tax that was previously allocated to the BEDC for economic development. The BEDC used to receive half a cent, and now they're receiving 1/8 of a cent, with 3/8 of that equaling $3.3 million to be allocated toward existing streets. That is what you see redoing some of our roads in town. Previously, the city was borrowing money to maintain its streets. And as I told the council coming on, you cannot borrow your way out of a street maintenance program. You cannot do it. You will burden your taxpayers and your taxpayers' children and great-grandchildren for decades to come. So let's do it in a pay-as-you-go. That's the smart thing to do. However, when we're tapped in other areas, there's not a whole lot of general fund left when you're competing with fire and police, et cetera. And so the city had committed a one-time amount of $800,000, where previously we were putting $25,000 towards streets. You can understand now why the streets are in the condition that they are and our refocus on streets. We're doing everything from ensuring that existing streets are maintained and using new products called TerraPave and TerraFog that will extend the life of a street 5 years. We're doing things with HA5, which is a asphalt polymer on our streets to again extend the street 5 to 7 years. We are mill and overlay and partnering and doing something with what I call IDIQ, indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery, so that I can have a variety of contractors on staff and to get the best bang for the buck, because nothing breeds a good price like competition. We're doing that with our engineers, we're doing that with our surveyors, and anybody who wants to do business with the city knows that they need to come to us with the best price possible. So, quality of life. Those folks that I mentioned up there, the Green Acres folks and everybody that you hear come at the dais these days is really, really focused on our quality of life, especially our recreation spaces. And our Parks and Recreation Plan was adopted in December of last year, and it clearly identified a pretty big shortfall. Our current budget is 1.29 for Parks and Recreation. The national average is 1.2, but our unmet needs are 2.4. So we need to double our park and recreation budget. Well, how do we do that if I just told you we're competing with police and fire? We do that modifying our development codes. So when a development comes and I get to exact property, I'm not having to pay high dollar. I'm not having to go buy property from anybody. And we partner through good quality of life developments. And grants and partnerships, and don't say the word sponsorship, but that is a word cities are using these days, where a corporation or an entity can fund a nice pavilion down at the park and bear the name of that entity. Don't throw any tomatoes at me, it works. So we're going to dive into master plans. The water master plan, like I told you, is probably the one that is stood up the most. And this is our existing water supply. So I know that it doesn't matter to you that we have a ground storage tank at Bob Bryant. I know it doesn't matter to you that we've got a bunch of wells coming online that you don't even know about over at Excess Ranch. I know none of those things really, those are the unsexy parts of development. The lines. I get the calls when you turn on the water and it's brown. Where's my Riverside Grove people? And it's brown. I get the calls when we're having problems doing our chemical mix because it is a science. Water is absolutely a science. And everything that you see here is our existing. Everything that you have called out are things we're going to need to address. So, like I said, our water system, really good plan to get it together, but it's an expensive plan. And it means I really need to understand what I need when I go into a development negotiation. Because Valverde, for example, 1,700 units there, what does the city need in that area and what can I exact in the planning process? And the truth is I need an elevated water tank there. I need redundancy in the city, and that is the highest point in the city. So we work with them early on to make sure that their lot layout is not in the way of the water lines that we need, so that their lot layout matches and we can work together as partners instead of me having to come back later on and denying a plat because I need specific right-of-way. All of those projects are expensive. We're looking down at $142 million, and that's today's dollars. Next year, that number will grow, and it'll grow, and it'll grow. Impact fees will only pay $142 million of that. So what does that mean? I've got to get creative, and I've got to make sure that our rates match, and I have to make sure development pays its fair share. And I need to make sure that I know what my plan needs to be, so if a developer needs to put in an 8-inch water line to serve their development, but I need it to be a 12-inch line, I know it needs to be a 12-inch line so that we only pay for a 4-inch differential, and we only pay for the cost of pipe, because they've already mobilized. That's good planning. That's good master planning. And unfortunately, some of our master plans are behind, our wastewater one being the most important, because we can get water out of the ground. And our new Simsboro wells over in Excess Ranch, with our combined system, the Simsboro wells will put 5 million additional gallons a day into the system. And that'll bring our total daily to about 8.5 million gallons a day. That's all great, but I gotta pump it, I gotta store it, I gotta treat it. That's $142 million. Here comes the wastewater plan. Again, not a very sexy plan, nobody wants to talk about that, but it is necessary. We get away from large lot developments as you enter the urban core. The legislature allows you to have septics in as little as 3/4 of an acre if you're not serving water. 3/4 of an acre lots is great for drainage, great for wastewater, but it doesn't get us the connectivity that we need, and we end up having to hopscotch, and we end up having to pay for right-of-way if I don't have a good plan in place. We went through a wastewater impact fee analysis. Wastewater accounts for, if I were to do a 4 million gallon day plant expansion, that's $301 million. If we go all the way to 6 million gallons, that's $365 million. And only a portion of that is impact fee eligible, which means our partnerships with Corex and our partnerships with others in the area who are serving utilities become that much more important. Our treatment of effluent water is the new gold, and if I'm treating wastewater at such a high technology at our wastewater treatment plant, and it requires minimal retreatment, and we can put it back into the water supply as effluent, whether that's for golf courses or treatment, and it becomes back into a potable water supply that we can drink, all of those things begin to drive that cost down. So again, having to be really smart about what we're doing and when we're doing it, and make sure that we're not just starting a project for the sake of starting a project. That's a big number. Our bond rating on our utility side dropped a notch. And it dropped a notch because we've already borrowed quite a bit for the existing wells. We are still AA, we are still well bond rated, but if we don't watch it, we're gonna take a slide backwards. On the general fund, that's a different story. We got an upgrade. So addressing those wastewater impact fees, making developers pay their fair share, we end up with a proposed $8,625 per tap fee. And that means per residential unit, essentially. Up from the existing $5,089, because that's a big amount of money I have to get to. And even though it seems like a lot, $8,625 seems like a lot for a tap, a septic system is going to cost you more than that. So one more womp womp, I promise, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So council was presented with the draft drainage master plan, and the bankers in the room can add up that number. It's in excess of $90 million. And when we had the conversation with the consultant about what is that going to do? Is that going to save a structure from being inundated with water? Is it going to save any life? Is it going to do X, Y, Z? And the response was maybe, maybe not. So obviously we didn't run and go borrow $100 million, $90 million to do this. We're identifying the projects that we need to, and also taking a strategic look at land acquisition in the areas that are flood prone. Our existing development code requires you to address your drainage on site. You have to create detention on site, and your pre and post development must equal. That is a really bad use of expensive land because you've portioned out away something that now has a detention pond that has no taxable value. So we've got to come up with better ways to address our drainage. We're on the periphery of Gills Branch and the Colorado River, so I understand we're never going to sort of be out of the drainage issue, but we do need to get better at addressing it. And this goes in line with our streets and our other things. Our impervious cover requirements right now are really high. Development can cover pretty much an entire lot with our existing subdivision regulations. And if you think about the number of streets that the existing codes would add and or increase impervious numbers, that water quality ends up in the Colorado. And we don't have a good system that is going to clean it before it gets there. So while addressing traffic might be great with a grid system of streets, there is an equal and more important impact to that runoff that's hitting the Colorado. All of those things, I come from Corpus Christi and all of our things drain into the bay. On a hot summer day, there are signs all along the coast that say do not swim, harmful bacteria. I don't want that for us. I don't want that for our community. So we're being cognizant not only of the flooding, but being good environmental stewards of the water that does shed off of sites.
You know, I would say that the biggest challenge is how expensive infrastructure is. If you look at the cost of 1 mile of road, it might be, you know, $1 million. Depending upon how wide it is and how much sidewalk there is on both sides and how much you have to dig up the road underneath to replace drainage infrastructure and such as you're building it, it might be $3 million for a mile. Our entire property tax collection for the entire city for 1 year is $5 million. So when you want to ask for new services from your government and those services, well, let's build a new building and let's provide this new service to our citizens that we haven't had or haven't provided before. And you look at it and you say, okay, well, that's going to cost, you know, 10 or 15 or $20 million and might cost $1 or $1.5 or $2 million a year to maintain. Well, where does that money come from? You know, that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have. And that is simply that we have medium-sized city goals and desires and things that we want to do, but we still have a small city budget. And that's probably, I think, the biggest challenge. It's about prioritization and making sure that you are paying attention to the core services that you have to provide, making sure that those are executed well, that they are executed faithfully. And then you look for opportunities one at a time to add on to those core services. And, you know, people would want you to do it faster than that, but there's just not the budget for it. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
So that comes to our finances. I threw a lot of numbers at you. I want you to know we're not going broke. I want you to know that we have made a really concerted effort about partnering and being creative, and we were able to keep our tax rate the same as last year's tax rate at 0.4994. And I know cities across the area are facing multiple digits of tax rate increases. We are cognizant of what's coming down the pipe. We're cognizant of a potential emergency services district tax. We're cognizant of any one of the entities needing to pass a bond. We're cognizant of all of the valuation increases that have gone up and how they impact our families. And so council made a concerted effort. We did do some pretty significant things in the budget with the money that we did have, and staff were the biggest benefactors this year. They do a great job in keeping this city running behind the scenes, and so we think it's important to make sure that we retain those employees and not just retain them and help them grow within the organization. This year in our debt rating, we have the Old Iron Bridge that was incorporated in the tax rate, in the debt rate, and that is going through engineering. And the Old Iron Bridge, we hope to have a ribbon cutting in December of 2025. It will go through some pretty significant rehabilitation, and I think it's going to revitalize an area of downtown that has been sadly shuttered for a while, and it begins to pay homage to our history again. For our residents, even though we did not increase the tax rate, that 0.4994 equates to $98 additional dollars a year. And we understand that's $98 that isn't going towards something else. There was a water fee that was added, that was $5, and that's to keep us in line with the American Water Works Association, that our fees weren't quite in line. And then our solid waste, we went out for RFP, and you saw Texas Disposal as our new provider. We did not pass on a rate increase, and we were facing a pretty significant rate increase. And the same thing for our health insurance. We scoured, and at one point we were facing a 26% health insurance increase. That's impossible, we can't do that. And so we went back, we went out for a request for proposals, and our staff might be a little grumpy because we're changing insurance, and that's always such a difficult thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. It's not fair to continue to pass those costs through. Our decisions should be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. And where we're struggling today is the time-bound, because things are changing so rapidly. Development is coming so quickly, and interest rates, they're going to go down, they're not going to go down, they're going to go down, they're not going to go down. Our last borrow was at 3.9% because of our great bond rating. But, I remember when we could borrow money at 1.5%. It was almost free. I know, it's not that anymore.
Overall, we just got our bond rating upgraded, I believe, is what I just heard at the last meeting, which is obviously really good. It was already very, very good. And that tells you that we're borrowing prudently, and we've made a real effort to spend off the borrowing that we hadn't completed up until now without issuing any new bonds. So that's been very important, and that keeps the bond rating up, which keeps interest rates down, which keeps the overall cost to the taxpayer down. The other thing is, development. Development gives us the ability to have the sales tax in oncoming years. We're in a situation now where, as sales taxes are leveling off, if we had, 6-7 years ago, if we had been more prudent with development, we would have another shopping center by now, and it would be producing sales tax instead of being without. So we're going to be without for another 1.5 to 2 years while we wait for that to develop.
So cost and the impact to the residents is not just on the mind of city council members. It is really on the mind of all of our elected officials.
And I did say a year ago that with the interest rate going up and everything, people can't afford houses. You take a $400,000 house, interest rate goes up, that might add $4,000 to $6,600 to a house. And that makes a lot of difference when you're trying to buy a house. So the growth is coming, but it has slowed down a little bit, what I think.
That affordability issue, you continue to hear it. So how do we do it all? I've just thrown a whole bunch your way. Well, I will tell you that I can't do it alone. I have to partner. We need to, if we're going to build a pipeline or we're going to build something, I want to make sure that I'm only going to open that ditch one time. I'm only going to mobilize one time. What do my friends at the county need? What do my friends at the school district need? If we're going through some redevelopment process, who else needs to be at the table? Is that Aqua Water? Is that Corex? Is that a number of the entities that are in our jurisdiction? Aqua Water faces very similar challenges that we face, in that infrastructure is very, very, very expensive. And so we've partnered with Aqua. In those areas that Aqua cannot serve, we will serve. And it is a way to acquire water service area and some of their assets and share that responsibility. In areas where I cannot serve or they already have a line, we enter into wholesale water agreements where there's a pass-through cost that we can share those expenses with, again, the development that is going to be needing those things. And again, partnering with Bastrop ISD, there is not one meeting that I don't go into with a developer when one of the first questions they ask is, how are the schools? I cannot attract development without a quality school system. So I appreciate the partnership with BISD. They let us have a seat at the table at their bond meeting. And in return, we have some pretty significant shared resource success stories that we've had happen, and you'll hear about that in a minute.
For years, I've reached out to the city and offered to help. I offered to do Main Street. Back when I used to own most of Maine, I was out there doing Old McDade and North Main. I said, hey, I'm here, I got the equipment, we'll just come straight on down. Unfortunately, at that time, the administration wasn't as lean forward as we are right now. So we were able to work it out. Commissioner Beckett actually did Hoffman Road for them. And so we'll do some more with them next year and try and finish up some to help them out, get the roads up to date.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamner. And that is such an important topic that I don't know that folks understand. So, I often get asked, well, I'm in the county, I pay taxes too, where's the county? The county has been a partner and continues to be a partner. Commissioner Hamner mentioned Commissioner Beckett redoing Hoffman Road. We worked with Commissioner Hamner to do Lover's Lane and to do some of the improvements along Lover's Lane. So we are absolutely leveraging the resources. We got the material at cost, we paid minimal for staff. It's not only a way for me to train our newly created streets and drainage department, but also a way to leverage his equipment, the expertise that his staff has on staff, and a way to leverage the purchase of material in a better way.
And actually, we work very closely together because our engineering department and the city's engineering department meet about twice a week. And we just collaboratively together completed the master transportation plan for up to 2050. And this includes bridges over the river here in the city. I think we got 3 of them out on the outskirts of the city. And we've got, I'm thinking 6 out off of 969 and off of 71 connecting those two. We've got a road coming off of 95 over to 71, which will require a bridge. And those are all going to be down there right around the 1209, 969 area, which is where SpaceX and Boring Company and soon to be X is going to be.
Again, leveraging our partnerships. BISD, I mentioned them being a really valued partner. They let me to the table at their bond meetings, and that was a scary thing. It had not been a great relationship for a long time. And so I promised Barry and team that we would be good partners. And so we came into early assistance meetings, we review their plans with them, we call out things that are going to be hairy, scary things, we call out things the architect perhaps missed. The school, many of the school sites are being built outside of the city. So we've developed an interlocal agreement that allows the city to do inspection services and site review services because we're down the street. He can pick up the phone and he can call any one of our city staff and we'd be there in a heartbeat versus a third-party inspector who may have to drive from Austin, and you may miss him if you miss the 15-minute window when he was supposed to be there.
For this opportunity to speak about the partnership between the Bastrop Independent School District and the City of Bastrop, because it serves as a powerful example of what can be achieved when the community works together. So on behalf of our Board of Trustees and the Bastrop Independent School District, I would like to personally thank the City Council and especially the city leadership for their partnership. By aligning ourselves in an effort to meet the demands of our growing community, we're creating opportunities for our students, improving facilities, we're enhancing the overall quality of life for our residents. The collaboration allows us to pool resources and ideas to tackle the challenges and create a stronger, more vibrant future for Bastrop. And to that end, we've delivered new schools, major renovations, all within budget and on time. So together, we're not just investing in education. This partnership is investing in the heart of our community. We're proud of what we've accomplished so far, and we're excited about what this partnership partnership has and what's to come as we continue to grow, innovate, and build a better Bastrop for all of us.
Yay. So this one gets me really excited, this partnership. I happen to be fortunate to wear the BEDC hat also. And I mentioned Accutronic, and I mentioned the work that the BEDC is doing as it works to revamp itself with a major budget cut. And what does that mean to the residents, and how do we continue to provide a valuable service called economic development? Through the leadership that we have at the BEDC board, our incentive agreements now have a job piece, they have an education piece, and we partnered with the Smithville workforce to create a training piece. And Accutronic is a jet engine microturbine manufacturer that received an incentive package from the BEDC a few months ago. And the incentive package requires 50 jobs that pay more than $50,000 a year, plus benefits. And it also required a partnership with the school district. And not just a partnership in paper with a letter of intent, and not just a partnership in paper where, we'd have a mentor show up at the school. This was an actual Swiss model where there are internships, paid internships, and our students can learn a skill and have a job at that company when they're done.
This is currently the only full-up jet engine manufacturing facility in the state of Texas, and one of the nation's only microturbine plants. Second, because we're focused on long-term growth, we've also acquired 13.84 acres of land in the city of Bastrop, where we will construct a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility for large-scale production. We've committed to create at least 50 high-skilled jobs and invest upwards of $4 million on that new plan. So I'd like to thank our friends from Bastrop, many of whom are with us today, for making that possible. We expect the Central Texas region to account for a 50% increase in our global headcount over the next few years. In order to meet those objectives, we're leaning forward to directly address the workforce challenge. And so I'm particularly proud of the third element of our announcement, the launch of the Accutronic Apprenticeship Alliance. This groundbreaking classroom-to-career pathway is being stood up in collaboration with the Bastrop Independent School District's Manufacturing P-Tech program. We are the school district's first corporate partner. The program is formally registered at the Department of Labor and will allow apprentices to earn a competitive wage before graduating high school. And after graduation, apprentices will have the opportunity to either become full-time electromechanical technicians or pursue a college education while working part-time at Accutronic. This will transform lives and make a substantial community impact for traditionally marginalized individuals who now have an opportunity to earn a living wage.
That's awesome. Here's also a big BEDC announcement. So in July, BEDC engaged Navis Consulting, Kat Caffrey with Navis Consulting. Kat was a prior city administrator who has accomplished what we call a P3, a public-private partnership program. There are 60 plus acres in the industrial park. And before we didn't have industry knocking at the door, what is the highest and best use of that land? A prior BEDC study had shown that a sports complex is an economic driver. And our park and recreation master plan also said that a sports complex is an economic driver. And so to that end, the BEDC engaged Hunden Partners, and a feasibility study will be conducted and completed by December of 2024 this year, a few short months away, to entertain the idea of a sports complex park that would be used for competitive sports and be a major, major driver in economic development in our area that can be utilized by the traveling sports and, more importantly, the sports that start at our high schools, those competitive sports. And if anybody in here has any students that play competitive specialty team sports, you know how much money you invest. And so somebody asked me, are those 5 hotels that are being built, are they going to be full? They're going to be full.
Well, I think it's about time that we have a real open meeting about the state of the city, because so many wonderful things are going on here. And you and I are both involved in a lot of them, so we're in the knowledge of it, but a lot of people aren't. So to be able to give the information to the community, let them get at least a better understanding of what's going on, I think it's a wonderful idea that we do that. And for the EDC, we have to have partners in the community. We're always working with the city. Sometimes we work with the county. We work with certain developers. But it's all about bringing good jobs here and expanding the tax base so we can really grow it into a wonderful community.
Thank you, Ron, for your leadership. So despite everything I told you, there's still a lot of potential to be unlocked. So leveraging our volunteers. We have an open call for volunteers. We have many, many vacancies among our many boards and commissions. And I know it's easy to be complacent when things are happening, or to be actually scared of everything that's happening and not even know where to jump in. But believe me, we need you. I need you. I need you to help drive this train. Continue our culture of inclusivity. We're stronger when we all don't look the same. And if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And I want us to be stronger together. And a continued service of customer service. And that's customer service for our residents. None of us, city staff, council, would be here without the residents and each of you who put them in office. And I hear the complaints that used to occur. I call, nobody answers, I can't get a response. He said he was going to show up, he didn't show up, I got a ticket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I want us to have such a culture that it's not a scary thing to come into City Hall. And to that end, I do sit with SILs every month. No question is off topic. You can come in, they're held somewhere in the community or at City Hall. And they've grown in popularity. And I believe that because it's a safe place. Nobody's going to judge you. And if you have that question, your neighbor has that question also. Folks can join either in person or we join on Zoom. So please, if you've not been to a Sit with Sil, please do so. Continuing to build on our strong partnerships and thinking of Bastrop as a whole. It is very easy to get into a siloed mentality and not share resources or to try to resource hog because something's going to happen if I share my, snickerdoodle cookies. Well, that's not. We become stronger together. None of us in this room, from any of the agencies to the nonprofits, can do it alone. We must collaborate. And being fiscally responsible, knowing that every decision that they make on the dais or that I bring for them to make on the dais has a real domino effect on how you can feed your families or pay your monthly bills. And being environmental stewards of our area and our beautiful area, and continue to be guardians of our history, but also stewards of our future.
Our hopes for the continued partnership between Pearl River and the city are centered around building a lasting, mutually beneficial relationship that drives community-centered growth and enhances the quality of life for the residents of Bastrop. I envision our collaboration continuing to support inclusion of businesses and industries that not only meet the city's economic and development goals, but also align with the values and needs of local residents. One key area of focus is to foster economic development by attracting new businesses, creating new jobs, and supporting local entrepreneurs. By working together, we can ensure that the city remains a vibrant, attractive place for businesses to invest and residents to thrive. I also see the partnership as an opportunity to strengthen community engagement. I look forward to collaborating with the city and involving residents in future phases, ensuring that our development reflects the diverse voices and needs of the community. By maintaining an open, transparent dialogue, we can ensure that our work together not only benefits the present, but also builds a foundation that benefits the future community at large. And scene.
So again, I'm going to circle back to a shout out to the BEDC because we haven't forgotten the little guys. We are creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem here through micro loans that the BEDC has created a revolving loan fund, and we've partnered with Roscoe Bank. Roscoe Bank gave us our first $100,000 donation that the BEDC matched with $100,000. And this allows us to do small business loans for small businesses that are struggling, who may need equipment, who may need capital, but don't have access to those services via the traditional loan method. And so our partnership with Roscoe allows the EDC to act as an SBA guarantor to those loans. First National Bank is creating a support service for underutilized or underrepresented communities. And we are talking about a business space where bankers come out into the community to meet with some of those populations. Main Street continues to do education for small business, everything from marketing to how to get somebody in your door, to how to set up your displays, to how to maximize the amount of retail dollars per square foot in your business. And our most recent addition, Michaela, has been door to door. She and my assistant, Michelle, they have been knocking on doors asking the question, what can we do for you? And lastly, Visit Bastrop is expanding its support of local businesses, of our partners and our assets, and not completely turning outward, but shifting more of a focus internally to be more of a partner and a better support system for some of our biggest drivers to visitors, such as the Opera House and the museum. So our future's bright, and I think Irby sums it up.
Not to coin the same phrase that everyone uses, the future is bright, but the future is looking good. As you've seen, even in the last year and a half, we've renovated one restaurant to being brand new. We've built a new restaurant called Maude's, which is what we're sitting in right now. We're building an event barn, which will fit 250 people with an event lawn outside of it that, we can have 500 people indoors and outdoors for community events or social events. We're continuing down this path to continue to build into this resort, to have it help meet the demand and also drive some of the demand to Bastrop.
And that's it. Our future is bright. Thank you for letting me a part of it. Thank you to the council for entrusting me in our every single day decisions that, quite frankly, keep me up at night. But again, our staff, there isn't one staff member here who wouldn't pick up the phone if I call at midnight, 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. Where's our police chief? She loves to do that. She loves to do that over the most mundane stuff that I swear could have waited until the a.m. But please, please know that Bastrop, you've entrusted Bastrop to myself and the staff. We take that responsibility very, very seriously. You've entrusted it to a great council who has been in your shoes, understand what it's like to make payroll, understand what it's like to pay the bills, and understand what it's like when you can't pay those bills. So we take those responsibilities very, very seriously, and we hope to continue to build an even better Bastrop. Thank you.